I began to realize that for me to really be effective, I have to be honest with myself and honest with people. So catch this for a second. I'm going to say something that's really harsh. People pleasers who are totally captivated by it unknowingly become liars. Because I'm going to say to David what I need to say to make sure he's happy with me. I'm going to say to Ted and to Jane and to Vicky what they need to hear to make sure they're happy with me and pleased with me. And in order to do that, I shift and waver, and I'm not totally honest.
No one wants to be judged. No one wants to be judged, but I promise you this. If you're a leader, you're going to be judged. And you just have to understand that that's part of the gig.
Unfinished Business Podcast Show with your host, David Sliman.
Welcome back to Unfinished Business, everybody. Today, we're going to talk about leadership. We're going to talk about transforming leaders today. And I've got one of the best in the industry who does this. And we're going to talk about his journey and how he got into doing this. We're also going to talk about how he's impacting businesses as a whole each and every day. And we're going to hear about his philosophies on how to really cultivate leaders, how to be a leader, right? And I always say a leader is not somebody who just stands up in front of the room and gives a speech. I mean, there's leadership within as well. And I know our guest who's here today with us, Sean Olson, welcome to the show. Appreciate it. Is going to give you some great insight. And I really want to hear what he's talking about. And he owns a company. He's a CEO and founder of Renogize. I always try to say that quick.
Yep,
Renogize.
exactly.
Yes, professional coaching. And we're going to hear his professional opinion on this. And you're going to get a lot out of this. I don't care if you're a business professional working in on a corporate team, or if you're a business owner and you need to start cultivating stronger leaders within your organization. This is the guy you're going to want to listen to. So again, Sean, welcome to the show.
Thanks, David. Great to be with you and the Unfinished Business listeners, and looking forward to our conversation.
That's right, because it always is, man. It is just unfinished business. It always goes and it
Always.
always goes. So,
Always.
well, listen, give everybody a little bit of background about yourself. And you told me your unique story about how you transitioned actually into this. And we'll dig more into the philosophies and really
Yeah,
cultivating leaders.
yeah, absolutely. So I'll go way back, but pick up really quick. So I was blessed to be born into an incredible family.
Yeah.
Faith was a huge part of our life, so much in the fact that like grandparents were in ministry. My dad was a music minister. And so when I was growing up, I was surrounded by great people that loved me. I was in church all the time, but I
Uh-huh.
always loved leading, right? So even in elementary school, I would be the one volunteering to do things, come high school, student council, college student council. But I ended up going to Bible college to go into ministry. The reason I did was everybody said I should. Right. And so I was at that point in time in my life a people pleaser. So if everybody says that I should, that's got to be what I'm supposed to do. Today, I'm no longer a people pleaser. I am a recovering, not recovered, recovering people pleaser. I'm better, but not all the way there yet, you know. But so my first 17 years, David, professionally was a preacher. And it was an incredible time. God blessed it in a lot of ways. But my joy in it was teaching or preaching on Sundays and developing leaders. And so some of my greatest joy are associate pastors on our team that went on to be at their own churches and to preach and
Mhm.
make a difference. But I was always captivated by leadership, both on the Christian level and secular level. So the Tony Robbins of the world, the Zig Ziglars of the world, the John Maxwells, and it was always in me. And then through a whole host of events, some self-inflicted wounds, other things just God's leading. Made a
Uh-huh.
transition at the age of 40. It was not a midlife crisis because I plan on living beyond 80, but making a transition. And God opened up a door for my wife and I to go to the Indiana University Kelley School of Business to work in exec
Yeah.
ed. I was in exec ed. She was working in an undergraduate program. And so it was like all this leadership development stuff I've been listening to and learning about for years, but from a total non-Christian model and even an academic model. And I was there for 4 years and I learned so much about business and about people. They gave me a mentor to help me in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
business side. You have a question. I can see it in your eyes. What's your question?
No. I mean, I want to talk about the mentor, right? Before we
Yeah.
move on, what were some of the biggest lessons that mentor gave you? And because I always
Yep.
stress to people, get a mentor, whether, especially in the business world, because it is such a jungle. But what were one of those? What were some of the biggest impactful things that that mentor gave you?
He gave me a lot, but I want to really quick say why they gave me this mentor, because this is a key
Okay.
piece in the
Yeah.
story, right? In reading people. This is going to sound really crazy, but the first day I'm on the job, I asked my boss, why did you hire me? Okay. Crazy question to ask a boss on your first day on the job. But I asked him that question because I came out of 17 years of ministry. Now all of a sudden, this is in the academic arena,
New
a top
deal.
10
Yeah.
business school, and they're asking me to go out and talk to companies on their behalf. And here's what he said. He said, what you don't know about business, we can teach you because we're going to give you a mentor. What you know about people, no one could ever teach.
I love that. Love that.
And so that struck me, though. First off, that's a gift from God in that sense, but it struck me that leadership really is about the people side. You can learn so many other tactical things: IT, business, creative arts, marketing. You can learn any technique, but leadership's about people, and it's not easy. And so I got this mentor. He was absolutely incredible, very experienced. He was part of the turnaround of a Fortune 500 company. He was the right hand man of the CEO as he was going through that. Two incredible lessons he taught me. He taught me a ton of stuff. I mean, I sat at his feet over and over and over for hours talking and having conversations. One of the things that he taught me was this, and this was hard for me coming again from the people pleaser background and the ministry background. He said, your goal is not for people to like you, it's for them to respect you. And I heard it
Huge.
and I believed it mentally. I did
Right.
not believe it in my heart. And so I didn't really push back on him because I didn't feel like I had a right to push back, but I didn't buy in. But as I began to spend more time with him and I began to get involved in companies and began to watch leaders in these organizations, I began to see if their goal was to be liked, no one was happy. If their goal is to be respected by treating everybody fairly, doing an appropriate job, elevating other people around them, and they're respected. I ran into some leaders who are what I would call great leaders, where I would talk to colleagues that actually didn't like them personally. Like they would never want to go to a ball game with them, never want to go to a dinner with them, but respected the crud out of them. And I'm like, oh, I get it.
You
That
get
was
it.
one of the biggest lessons.
Yeah, I'm going to jump ahead here because you're jumping on this leadership thing, but in your experience in working with a number of leaders and cultivating leaders,
Yeah.
are there one to three things that just that have to be there in order to be a leader that, or what are the one to three things that you feel are the
Yeah.
most important that have to be there?
Not in order, not
Yeah,
rank order. They're all
just
three
they're
equally
just
important.
there. Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't have to put an order.
You have to have a growth mindset. And a
Okay.
growth mindset starts with you. You have to say, I have to keep learning. I have to keep growing. I have to keep evolving. And I always say leadership is a journey, it's not a destination. Even if you have that quote unquote terminal position of CEO, you still have to keep on learning and growing. So if you don't have a growth mindset, you will not be effective as a leader. Okay. Second piece is you have to be outrageously curious and courageous. Curiosity
Great.
side is where I get to know you and ask a lot of questions. So, like if I was your leader, David, I'm asking questions. I'm curious. Why do you do that? How did you go about this? Tell me about what's going on in your mind with this. Not because I want to correct you and fix you, quite the opposite. I want to understand you. And I also have to be curious to understand my industry and where things are going and where's business today and how do we market through a podcast, right? Which is now one of the prime ways to
Yes.
market in business. You have to be curious, but it has to be backed by courage. The courageous side of it is now that I've seen these things from my curiosity, I've actually got to start taking some steps. The
Yes.
failure to launch, as an entrepreneur, to launch a business, as an existing business leader, to launch that new initiative, failure to launch because they want to make sure everything's perfect before they take the first step, you'll never go. You got to
Never
have
go,
courage. You
man.
got to step out.
Yes, and the psychology behind that, right? I mean, you have some philosophies on the psychology of being a leader.
Mhm.
You've obviously pinpointed those. But for you, you talked earlier about the transition from a people pleaser to being a leader, right?
Mhm.
And when did you realize? Because I think there's professionals out there who maybe not even realize they're people pleasers. But what was
Mhm.
there a pivotal moment for you where you're like, man, I am just too much of a people pleaser, and I've got to step now more into a leadership because it is risky. Listen, it is risky.
It
No
is.
one wants to be judged. No one wants to be
Right.
judged. But I promise you this: if you're a leader, you're going to be judged, and you just
Mhm.
have to understand that that's part of the gig,
Yep.
and that's hard. But when did you identify like you were transitioning, or you did transition into that,
Mhm.
from that people pleaser to that, I guess, a recovering people pleaser, as you said?
Yeah. Yeah. Part of it was people telling me the truth, right?
Okay.
But here's what I sensed in me with this. When you are a people pleaser, you end up
Mhm.
being that plate spinner. You know, if you can imagine, you see like at the circus, you know, the person sitting down and they've got all these
Mhm.
plates on a table or on their leg on the pegs and stuff like that.
Yeah, man.
As a people pleaser, I'm doing everything different for everybody to make sure that they're happy. Well, first of all, your job as a leader is not to make sure people are happy. Your job as a leader is to make sure they're set up for success. You can't make
Huge.
somebody happy. Okay. And so I realized I was spinning all these plates and not moving anybody, especially myself, forward. And so through things like my mentor that I had, through talking to other leaders and seeing this, I began to realize that for me to really be effective, I have to be honest with myself and honest with people. So catch this for a second. I'm going to say something that's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
harsh. People pleasers who are totally captivated by it unknowingly become liars.
Huh.
Because I'm going
So,
to say to David what I need to say to make sure he's happy and with me.
yeah.
I'm going to say to Ted and to Jane and to Vicky what they need to hear to make sure they're happy with me and pleased with me. And in order to do that, I shift and waver, and I'm not totally honest.
On that, man. You got it. We got to clip that back because that is
Yeah,
so powerful. It's profound. I mean, you just think about it, right? Because you're all just going to bend
yeah,
and mold into the situation that you're in because you're trying to please that person.
yep,
Really good information. I mean, really
yeah.
good, actually, perspective.
Yeah, well, let me take it to the next level then, right? So when
Yeah.
you flip that switch, what happens is I now can give David honest feedback for his benefit, for him to grow, even developmental feedback, not just the good stuff. Because when you're a people pleaser, all you say is the good stuff and you exaggerate it, right? Well, if I
Yes.
don't give David developmental feedback, hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this area to grow in and trying to help coach you through that? I neglect your opportunity to grow. Well, as a leader, my job is not going to be the top line or the bottom line. That's a result of my job. My job as a leader is people. My job is to help David become the best version of himself, David 2.0. And I can only do it with honest feedback. So when I quit trying to make everybody happy, I actually open up the door for people to grow.
That's where, and it's got to be both ways, right? Someone's got to be ready,
Mhm.
right? You were talking about a
Yeah.
recovering, a
Yes.
recovering people pleaser, or someone who it's one thing to say that you want to be a leader, but to actually be able to put in that work. And listen, some people are just thrown into it and
Yeah.
they can navigate through it, and others really need that coaching.
Mhm.
Um, and this is what you do. So
Yeah.
you you really try to elevate people from, anywhere from mid manager to C suite. But tell me how much, I guess, going into organizations, let's start from the floor here.
Sure.
What are some of the biggest mistakes organizations are made in developing leaders?
Mm. Most organizations, and this is across the board, they
Mhm.
find the people who are very good at what they do,
Mhm.
right? They're great at sales, they're great at marketing, they're great at developing these software
Mm.
programs, they're great doers, and they're liked. Great doers who are liked get promoted. The problem is when they get promoted, they don't have a clue of what to do there because they're doers, not leaders. And so what happens is companies, out of great passion and desire, are elevating people out of their effectiveness. So what those organizations need to do is make sure that they're going to back it up. If I'm going to promote you, David, to become a manager, I better give you the toolbox on how to manage effectively because it has nothing to do with what you've been doing so far.
That is so good because I've seen this in the sales world, right? You get somebody
Yeah.
who's really good, they're killing it
Mm-hmm.
with their numbers, they're
Yep.
knocking out, they're the best salesperson, and then they're like, I want to be a manager. And what happens is they get into management and they're miserable
Yeah.
because they really just don't have the skills to do it or have had cultivated the skills to do it. And I've seen that a lot, especially in the sales space, where they'll promote somebody who's doing a great job and trying to manage a team. And so now on your level, talking
Mm-hmm.
mid manager, suite level, how do you cultivate? First, how do you identify it? And then two, how do you cultivate leadership with professionals? Like what's your go-to?
Yeah, great question. So when we are brought into organizations, they oftentimes have people, they have candidates, right, that they want to have for coaching and things like that. We ask them
Mhm.
why that person is a candidate.
Okay.
If it is a remedial thing, like they're failing here, they're on a PIP, we tell them, you guys need to do your job of trying to build them up. That's not what we're here for. We're here to take effective leaders and make them exceptional leaders. And part of that goes to that growth mindset. They have to want to be coached. And so one of the first pieces is asking yourself the question, if you want to elevate in your career, are you coachable? Are you willing to
Mm,
receive feedback? Are you willing to be challenged? I mean, we tell people when we launch an engagement, you'd be like, hey, David, as we go through this, my job as a coach is to make you uncomfortable. Like, I'm going to challenge you to try to do things differently. And they're always like, well, what does that mean? You know, my practical example I always give is you're leading a team meeting. We're in a coaching session. I'm going to ask you, how do you lead your team meeting? What's the desired outcome of it? How do you normally go about it? And you'll describe that to me. And I'll be like, what's the benefits of that? What's working? What's not working? We'll coach through that. But then I'm like, I want you to try this next team session. Next time you have a team meeting, try this. And I'll explain why, and we'll work through it, maybe even role play a little bit. And then we stop our session. You have the team meeting the next week. We're back in a session a week after that. Hey, David, what went well? What didn't go well? What did you learn from that? What's that leadership principle in it? But it's uncomfortable, even mechanical, to try something new and different. But, take it like in the fitness world, you can finish these phrases in fitness: no pain, no
gained.
gain. In the
Yeah.
leadership world, there is no growth in comfort. You've got to get uncomfortable and try new and better things for your benefit and for their benefit.
Get comfortable getting uncomfortable. That
Yes,
was something
absolutely.
I've lived by. That's the I really want to make this point here. The only way you grow personally or
Mhm,
professionally is by putting yourself in situations that are going to be more challenging. And I'm not saying you always have to do that, but once you learn, there are only mistakes if you don't learn from them. And once
mhm.
you learn from them, that's where you'll truly grow as a leader.
Yep.
And I really can't stress that enough. The uncomfortable part of this is really when you're going to grow. And I, I think it's a great point that you made. Talk to me about recognize because this is a hard thing to do, and you
Mhm,
talked about this here in a minute ago. Self-analyzation.
mhm,
It's a tough thing. We're all human. We're all
mhm,
wired in a way, but giving feedback. If I'm somebody running an organization and I'm trying to cultivate leaders, okay, I'm going to
mhm.
switch gears a little bit because I want to talk more
Sure.
about what you do, but can you give them some advice on how to be constructive and in giving feedback? And if someone is receiving feedback, how to take that as a positive versus a negative? Because it's a fine line, isn't it?
Mhm. It is. Kind of.
Okay.
It's a fine line. If you are, as a leader, known and respected by your people,
Yeah.
feedback's a normal part of the journey and they get used to it, right? But as you're starting this for the first time, maybe with a new employee, or if it's new to
Yeah.
you as a leader, like I've not
Yes.
normally done this, the phrase I use all the time is acknowledge what you know. So let's just pretend again, David, I'm your boss, you're an employee, you've been with me for
Sure.
5 years, and I've never really given you any solid feedback. But I have
Yes.
been reading something, watching a podcast. I've got my own coach who's like, you really need to give feedback to your people to help them grow and develop. I'd sit down with you. I'd be like, hey, David, I've been doing some things to grow personally as a leader. And in part of what I've been learning in that is I need to give better developmental feedback for your benefit for you to grow. And so I'm going to step into this new arena of trying to give you developmental feedback.
Right.
I may at
Yeah.
times fumble over my words. It may seem
So good.
mechanical
Yeah.
because it's new and different to me, but I'm doing this so that I can be a better leader for you and so that you can excel in your own leadership. And when you acknowledge what you know and you set the stage like that, they're not going to be nitpicking your words. They're not going to be questioning your heart. You just told them what it was.
That's great. Like, and this parlays me. Next question is the difficult conversations, right? And I think you'd actually
Yeah.
just said this, but one of the things I was taught years ago by a mentor was that when you're going to have a difficult conversation with somebody, just call it what it is. Like, start it
Mhm.
out with, "Hey, Sean, you know what? This is going to be a difficult conversation. We're gonna, and here's the thing that tied it together for me. We're gonna work through it together.
Mhm.
All right. There might be some of things you agree with. There might be some things you don't agree with. But I'm not here to agree. Here's this, and this was said to me actually about 3 years ago, and it really stuck with me. I'm not here to agree. What I'm here to do is communicate.
Mhm.
And I think if the world could start moving towards that a little bit more, we'd probably move a little bit. We'd move the
Yeah.
needle a lot more in that case
Yeah.
because John, we don't have to agree all the time. But
No.
that's where the respect comes through on the leadership side is if someone can respect where you're coming from, well, then that's the biggest difference in the
Yeah.
world. Yeah.
Let's be honest about it. Most leaders, most human beings, even forget the leadership aspect,
Yeah.
we avoid conflict. We don't like conflict. We don't like difficult conversations. People that say, I love conflict and difficult conversations, they end up just being jerks. Seriously. I mean, because no one's going to like that unless they're coming across the wrong way. And so, yeah, to call it out and say this is going to be a difficult conversation is huge. But if your heart in it is coming alongside of them, and I like that you pointed that out, it's awesome. I saw somebody once give me this little visual of this, and I love this. Is in that conversation, there's three things present. There's you, there's the person, and there's the problem. In most scenarios, the leader stands next to and puts their arm around the problem and points at the person as the issue. What you need to do as the leader is come and stand alongside the person, put your arm around them and say, we have a problem. How can we deal with this?
We need to
Isn't that a
clip
great
that back.
visual?
Yes, it's such a great visual. Like the next time, if you're listening to this, the next time you're in a situation where you do have a problem with an employee or even in their personal life, right?
Yeah.
It works the same way. That is so great. Like clip that back, listen to that one more
Yeah.
time and take that to heart. That is so true right there. And if you can apply that strategy, again, I think you're going to lot. Now you're going to get somebody listening versus thinking about what they want to say or defend themselves, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. Because
yeah,
in identifying the true problem, what the root is, the symptoms of it, we're asking them their feedback and their input on this. Okay, this has been happening. We haven't hit quota for the last quarter, right? For me to stand alongside the problem, I'm standing next to quota saying, David, why didn't you get this done? Versus me coming alongside David saying, David, this is the quota. Why aren't we hitting you? Is the quota bad?
yeah,
Are the leads we're giving you bad? Let's have a conversation about this. That's where I come alongside you.
yeah. What are you struggling with? What can we help you with, right?
Exactly.
And that it's really important. Give me an example. You work with a lot of businesses,
Mhm.
right? You've have a lot of experience doing this. Give me an example of one of the areas or maybe companies stories where you were
Yeah.
like, man, I'm not sure. And then you impacted them and turned this thing around, or maybe it's a situation that you didn't see coming. But give me a little bit of story. I want to hear this.
I'll give you a fun story, but it's not going to go the
Okay.
way you think. And so
All
we
right.
have had occasions where we coach people where the companies are like hitting their head against a wall. Like, we can't
Yeah.
get through to this person. We don't do it very often because that's not really our forte. Our forte is taking good leads and making them great. We've taken a few of those. And one of my funnest ones was my most frustrating one. Like, we have biweekly sessions, and I'm like, oh, crud, I got to talk to him again. Seriously, that's where my head was. And so I would have to stop, catch this, leaders. I would have to stop and check my emotions and where I was before I talked to him because I needed to come fully present myself. So I would do that. I'd work with it. I felt like I was banging my head, not getting anywhere. He ends up getting fired, which to me was verifying I didn't get anywhere. Right. So I'm like, first off, he should have been.
Right. Right.
It was justifiable firing. Secondly, I'm like, I'm evaluating myself. I'm like, what did I do wrong? What didn't I do that I could have possibly done as the coach that
Yeah.
we're pulling through and
Right.
stuff like that? 2 months later, I get an email from him. I'm interviewing for a new role. I don't want to repeat what I did. I heard you say this, 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 and this. I've been thinking about it. I've been working at it. Can you kind of like role play this interview with me? I'm like, yeah, no problem. He gets this job. And 3 months later, he emails me and he's like, I'm doing everything that we talked about, and it's made all the difference in the world.
Oh man.
And so,
Yeah.
where I thought, first off, and this happens for a lot of people, a lot of your listeners, sometimes being fired is your greatest gift if you evaluate yourself and why it happened.
Yeah.
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 And so that's just one of those weird things where we have impact as leaders beyond what we know. I was honored and blessed that he actually followed up with me. He may have
Uh-huh.
never followed up and I wouldn't have known the rest of the story, but we still have to do what we're supposed to do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. And what about the connect like with technology today, right? People
Mhm.
working from home. Uh, Obviously, the technology has made it really easy about connecting like this. What do you see in the transition world? Because listen, as leaders, there are people who are very adamant these days about having people back in the office, and there are other people who want that flexibility, right? And as being a leader, that's got to be a challenge. I know it's a challenge these days because I'm working with some clients who are up against that. What's your take on that these days? Because uh, it's a little off the subject, but it's still part of
No, no.
leadership in the business
Yeah.
world today, and I think it's something that
Mhm.
needs to be addressed because it actually came up on one of my last podcasts.
We talk about it all the time,
You
right? Because
do?
we're always
Okay.
talking about what the expectations, right? So work expectations in 2025 and the whole work from home, it was peeking its head out prior to COVID. Post COVID, it's
Yeah.
like it's right in front of us. There is no right or wrong answer to this.
Okay.
Here's what we know about it. There are a lot of employees who feel they're more effective working from home. And part of that feel is, especially if you're in these metros around the US, where
Yeah.
they used to have a 90-minute commute before and after work, their 8 hour workday was really an 11-hour workday. Now they're like, it's an 8 hour workday, right? So they feel more effective because they're not spending 3 hours on the road and stuff. But what's happened now that we're, like 3, 4 years removed from all that,
Hmm.
and this is why a lot of organizations are saying you got to come back to the office, is work has been getting done. Culture has been destroyed
Hmm. Yep.
because culture does not transcend hybrid work. And so part of the reason they're saying to come back in is we want to develop our team. Well, you don't even feel like a team if you never actually see one another. And so
Yes.
the aspect of, and here's why team and leadership is so important. It's about trust and it's about relationship. And the phrase we use all the time is there is no trust outside of relationship. Okay. Well, David, you and I, we've talked virtually now a few different times. If I come out to Park City, Utah and break bread with you for 2 hours, we're going to go from here in our relationship to like 6 feet deep. I could also, in the next 6 months, spend 10 hours with you virtually, and we're not going to go as deep as I could in those 2 hours breaking bread with you.
Yeah.
Because there's no trust outside a relationship, and relationship is face to face. It's person to
Yeah.
person.
Right. And then it becomes so mechanical, right? When people are just quotas or just doing your job or what needs to be done right now. I agree. I think there's this fine line right now that, oh, they just want me to come back in the office again. Oh, I gotta get like that's not it. It to build a how hard is it to build a culture? I mean, really?
One of the most difficult things. It's
I want to
incredibly
stress
difficult.
this. I want to stress this, and I want your opinion
Yeah.
because it's not something you just
Right. Well, it's really, really difficult because number one is you have to define what you want the culture to be. And then everybody in any form of leadership. So I'm not saying just the C suite, but if you are a leader, meaning you have a direct report, you have to absolutely be sold out and bought into what that culture is going to be. And hear me on this, then
yeah,
live it out for 24 to 36 months before the organization actually feels it. Right. So it's setting the target, living it out over a period of time before your company buys in. Here's the biggest problem we have oftentimes. People
yeah,
put culture words and culture phrases all over their walls.
yeah,
Great thing
yeah,
to do. Put them on your walls so people can repeat them. But if you don't live it, what do they say? They say that's the
yeah.
culture,
Right.
but
But
it's
it's not
not.
really.
And here's the hard thing about it.
Yeah.
This goes to culture in an organization. This goes to personal brand, who you are as a leader and stuff like that. If you don't define it and intentionally live it, they will define it for you and you won't like it
Amen.
every single day.
Amen. There's this exercise we like to do when I do the sales training, and I
Yeah.
call it the power statement. And I bring
Mm.
in everybody from the CEO all the way to the people who are leading the charge, marketing, sales team, everybody. And the power statement really identifies what challenges do you solve for your customers, how you do it, and what makes you different. And obviously that's the framework, but it's so
Yeah.
hard. It's a really evolving thing that you have to put
Yeah.
together. And it's
Yep.
amazing how many when you start this thing and you ask
Mhm.
the question around the room, hey, what challenges do you ask those three questions and you get so many different iterations. And then
Yep.
you get, and again, I really try to involve the C levels or the higher level executives or CEOs, depending on the size of the company. And then it's amazing how you get this organizational alignment when everybody's on the same page. And I think
Yep.
organizations just don't take enough time to do exercises like that. They want to push
They
the
don't.
numbers, they want to hit the metrics,
Yep.
they want to do this and they want to do that. But if you could just take the time from the leadership standpoint and identify what you want your culture to be, it's amazing how your organization will live it. And it's not easy. You're right, Sean. I
No,
mean, it is
it's not.
not easy.
Yeah.
It
So
it is ever going. It is not something that you stop eating to. I mean, you have
no,
to keep going. Yeah.
absolutely. So, two thoughts that come out of this. First off, leaders have to be intentional. So, we've actually got kind of like a brand inside of Renogize Professional Coaching where we have
Yeah.
the Intentional Leader Academy, which is an open enrollment leadership
Okay. Great.
academy. We have the Intentional Leader podcast, which is our own podcast, and hope you guys
Yes.
can listen to that too. I want to get you on there, David.
Yeah. I'd love
Um,
to.
Everything in leadership has to be intentional. And so this conversation right now about culture embodies this. If we don't intentionally say what we want it to be, intentionally live it out every day, intentionally cast it out to other people, intentionally do exercises and words and things to keep it in the front of their minds, it is not going to happen. Okay. And it's going to change. So intentionality in leadership is crucial. I even think back to your first podcast this calendar year, 25, your goal setting podcast.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
talked about
Thank
writing
you.
it down. And I don't
Yeah.
remember the numbers, but I know it's like 6, 7% of people actually write down goals every year and things
Yeah.
like
Like
that.
it's like 14%. I think that's the
Okay,
number. I go back to it,
14%.
but yeah. Yeah.
All you were talking about was intentionality.
Yeah.
and going after it, right? When you're intentional as a leader, incredible things happen. My second thought on this one about investing all that time for it, a phrase that I've stolen from somebody else is everything in leadership you are going to pay as a leader. Now, I don't mean cash, but I do mean virtual cash,
Yeah.
okay? You have a choice as a leader. Am I going to pay now or pay later? So let's keep this same culture context for a moment. Paying now means we're going to have meetings, we're going to do exercises, we're going to push it, we're going to be intentional, and we're going to spend hours upon hours of man hours where they're not selling or manufacturing or producing. But it's worth it because after that, we are all on the same page, singing the same song in alignment. So I have to pay now for that benefit down the road. If I don't pay now because I don't want to, pay my time and
Uh,
take all those opportunities, I will pay later because we're going to be misaligned. No one's going to like the culture and we're going to fail. Pay now
Such a
or pay
great point.
later.
You're going to pay
You
now or
have a
pay later.
choice.
And I think, what is your recommendation on the balance of time? Listen, as a CEO or a leader or a
Mhm.
manager, there's certain things that you have to do mechanically to execute, whether it's reporting or just identifying, but balancing that time between the people interaction leadership and the
Mhm.
business interaction leadership. Do you have a formula or do you have a recommendation or is it just kind of different across the board?
No, I don't have a formula or
Yeah.
recommendation.
No,
It
I mean,
is it
yes.
is situational. But
Yeah.
here's the one thing that I'll say. I'll use this illustration through our executive coaching.
Yeah.
So if I'm coaching an executive, I'm with them for 1 year, every other week for an hour. So it's 2 hours a month. Okay.
Yeah.
Most leaders from like directors through CEOs, when they hear about that, they think, I mean, this is like just the auto answer. I don't have 2 hours a month, right? Everybody says that. And of course, we then go into the ROI of it. We increase your efficiency and effectiveness, and we're helping you navigate real life business as we're talking. All those things are true. But here's what happens at the end where we're doing our final debrief after a year of working with that leader. We tell them, we're like, here's something I want you to do, David. I want you to book our appointment on the calendar for the next year, every other week for an hour, but I'm not going to be there. So, in that hour, spend time on your leadership. Think about your people. Think about the strategy. Think about what needs to happen. As a leader, if you don't intentionally set aside time to think and process leadership pieces and have vital conversations, your organization will fail.
I mean, it's just, again, there's so many clips here that we could play back and realistically play that one back as well, because it's super important to really be, listen, leaders are typically disciplined as it is. And
Yeah.
I think if you could just put that discipline together and focus on that time to draw in the people and work on and listen, there's a thing where you got to identify yourself, you got to be able to
Mhm.
identify your strengths and your weaknesses too, and
Yeah.
either leverage people to help you with your weaknesses or work on those weaknesses, and I think it's important. So listen, before I go here, question, where do you see leadership going these days? I mean, where
Mhm.
do you see it from a and more from a corporate standpoint?
Yeah.
Um, the work that you're doing, where do you hope you see it going? I guess that's probably a better
Yeah.
question.
The answer's the same. My hope side of it is it happens faster than I think it will. Okay. I think that as we have navigated changes in the world, and as we're navigating now this change into automation with AI and everything,
Uh,
there are a lot of people from leaders on down that think AI is going to replace things. Okay. AI is going to replace things. On the leadership level, it will not replace leaders. Okay. Because leadership is about people is about relationship. Computers can't have relationships. Okay. What AI does is it allows us to process data more rapidly to make better critical decisions faster. Well, if we're processing information more rapidly and making crucial decisions and better decisions faster, it actually frees up my time as a leader to invest in my people.
oh, that's,
So I
uh,
actually see AI and automation opening up the door for greater people contact to elevate individuals to greater heights than we've ever known. We're starting to see glimpses of it. I hope it becomes a trend.
Yep. And I got to tell you, AI comes up on every podcast in some way, shape, or form. I was just on a marketing podcast and AI, I
Yeah.
mean, it comes up every time. And I always say this, I'm going to say it again. You've got to understand the fundamentals. You've got to understand the fundamental. And in this case, you got to understand the fundamentals of people. Okay.
Yep.
You've got to understand the fundamentals of how to handle people, how to build a culture. The AI side of it is just going to speed up some of the processes and the things that we used to do from, that were kind of
Mhm.
bogging us down, so to speak. But I'm really aligned with you on that. You hit it right on the
Yeah.
head, Sean.
Yeah.
You hit it
Here's
right
what I
on the
talked
head.
to a leader about the other day. This is so funny. If you watch a video, it's the AI voice, right? It could be a
Right.
male, female, but that AI voice,
Yes.
it's just a voiceover from the transcript and everything. If you come close to sounding like that to your people, they will turn their backs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So true,
You
man.
have to be true to who you are, speak in your voice, speak to that person, elevate them, and we all win.
It's fantastic. Listen, man, I have enjoyed this
Yeah, me too.
conversation tremendously. Really, it's really engaging. And listen, where can people find you? I always say this before we leave, but I want to make sure we put some stuff up here for you. But if there's some leader out there or an organization they want to connect with you, or there's a professional that wants to connect with you for some coaching, where can they find you?
Yeah. So I'm on LinkedIn, Sean Olson. You'll find me on there. Our website for our organization is renogize.com, Renogize. I'll give you 30 seconds on where that came from. When we formed the company, my wife and my daughter are sitting down with them describing executive coaching. And I said, it's kind of like a renovation of a home. The bones of the structure are solid, but we got to go in, move stuff around, freshen it up. And I said, then it's also kind of like where their cheerleader, pat on the back, kicking the butt, whatever they need.
Uh-huh.
And my wife and my daughter are like, renovation and energize,
I
Renogize.
love it, man.
So that's what it is, right? So renogize.com. We also have our podcast, the Intentional Leader Podcast. It's on all the platforms. It's on YouTube. But yeah, we'd love to connect with you. We are here simply to impact people. That's why we exist. That's what we're after. We just happen to do it through leadership.
And listen, I appreciate what you're doing out there, man. It's definitely needed. It's not something you can find in a textbook. I mean, you can read some books on leadership, don't get me wrong, but it's something that you have to work at. And it's not
We
something
do.
that just comes. There's some natural leaders out there, don't get me wrong, but even the natural leaders for that matter have things to work on. So
Yep.
I really appreciate you being here. It's because of, guests like you, I always say, that are making this show successful. So all the listeners out there, listen, like this show, just share the show with one person. We appreciate all the support. We're really getting some great traction. And again, it's because guests like you, Sean, on this show, and appreciate you being here today and sharing your insights. It's been super helpful. And I know
Yeah.
there's going to be some impact for some people listening to this.
Thank you, David. It's been a blessing, and I hope that unfinished business takes off for you.
Absolutely. Wealth, health, success to all of you out there. Sean, thanks again for being here. We will see you all next time.
Unfinished Business Podcast Show with your host, David Sliman.